Wabarakatuh to everyone on the floor. So I would like to start this session by quoting a verse from the Quran, Surah Al-Ma'idah 51. O you who have believed, do not take the Jews and the Christians as allies. They are in fact allies of one another, and whoever is an ally to them among you, then indeed he is one of them. Indeed, Allah guides not the wrongdoing people. So this is the verse that started the case of Basuki Sahaja Purnama, or also known as Ahok, when he quoted the Quranic verse Al-Ma'idah 51 that I said just now while introducing an economic program in a village. His concern lay in his political opponents using this very verse to discourage people to accept his leadership as a non-Muslim. But the message was seen as Ahok criticizing the verse itself, as opposed to those who may misuse it to undermine his political aspirations. So Indonesia has the largest Sunni Muslim population in the world, and it recognizes 6 religions based on the country ideology named as Pancasila, a set of interrelated principles. So according to the constitution, these 6 religions are all equal. And on 9 May 2017, a court verdict was sentenced to Ahok, carrying 2 years in prison for accusation of blasphemy. So I would like to invite Dr. Ihsan Ali Fauzi to present his case on the Islamic challenges in Indonesia. I'll pass the floor to Dr. Ihsan.
I forgot your name. What's your name?
Sorry, my name is Mariam.
Mbak Mariam, terima kasih. Selamat pagi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. In Indonesia, we usually call it, selamat pagi menjelang siang. Dr. Faruq, Professor Faruq, what comes first? Datuk first or Professor first? Terima kasih sekali. Thanks very much for having me here. This wonderful and powerful and important conference. Let me start with the Marrakesh declarations, on whose basis this conference is organized. I think we have been talking about that also, Professor Chandra last night. Is a powerful response to pressing global human rights concerns. This is particularly true with regard to the rights of minority groups to exercise their freedom of religions and belief in many Muslim countries. But I think it is also has a very strong resonance around the globe, given the increasing number of Islamophobia and suspicions against Muslim refugees and old communities in some part of Western countries. I'm especially moved by the declaration for its sources, and again, Pak Chandra last night has talked about this. It draws its values, principles, and legal frameworks from the Islamic traditions, particularly the 7th century Charter of Madinah, Piagam Madinah, to affirm equal citizenship as an Islamic principle and traditional form of governance prescribed by our Prophet Muhammad SAW. I think this is a strong model for how religious traditions and international human rights law can be mutually reinforcing, and the bridge between the two could be built or strengthened in the future. Now let me go, going to Ahok. For this conference, sadly, I reread the declarations in my office in Jakarta about precisely a month, after the defeat of Ahok, as Ibu Mbak Mariam has mentioned before, lost his case in the last election in Jakarta. Mostly, and I'm certain about this, for the alleged blasphemy law he never made. He never committed. I will be talking more about this, and I think it's a kind of manufactured religious offense. That is, I will be following a Singaporean scholar called hate spin. The declarations can serve as powerful resource for legitimizing and advocating for minority rights and ecosystem more broadly within the Muslim world, including Indonesia, in defending someone like Ahok. So if you you can see the picture of Ahok on my here, who is in jail now. He is in jail now for the alleged blasphemy case. And again, I will be talking more about that later. But Ahok is a candidate, as Ibu Maryam has mentioned before. He is a candidate with a double minority. Actually, I will tell you more later about him. Some people in Jakarta say he is not only double minority, he's triple minority. He's not only Christian, but also of Chinese origin in Indonesia. But he also speaks very openly in the way that is usually used Jakarta dialect, where in public places. So some people say that he's not only triple, he's not only double minority, he's a triple minority. He can't keep his mouth shut in the way that is more attuned to Jakarta and Indonesia's on Malay traditions. So I think it is around this issue, Marrakesh, the rise of what I will call Islamist intolerance. Let me tell you more about this slide. So, should he be elected, Ahok, he would be the first Chinese Christian governor of our capital city. The picture below also show you one of the protests called, I will be talking about this later, in defense of Islam, aksi membela Islam, the actions to defend Islam, that creates, among others, the posters called, saying, Ganyang Cina. Ganyang Cina, you understand what Ganyang Cina means, kill the Chinese, basically. So I'll be talking, it is around this issue, Marrakesh, the rise of what I will call Islamist intolerance and discriminations against religious minorities in Indonesia, that I will structure my talk this morning. I will first discuss the legacy of peaceful, as Professor Shad also this morning. Professor Datuk said, the legacy of peaceful Islam in Indonesia, which sadly started to change in the last 15 years, when some form of intolerance, even violent expressions under the ban on Islam took place in many parts of the country. This involved the transformation of Indonesian Islam from Islam ramah, smiling Islam, into Islam marah, the angry Islam. Then I will discuss what happens to be a paradox, which is that these intolerant expressions, even the use of violence by Islamist actors, grows at the time when the country's political system becomes more democratic, becomes more open, with the collapse of the Suharto. I will argue that Indonesia's democratizations provide avenues for both freedom and expression and extremism. When politicians in tandem with some Islamists make use of some gray areas in our democracy to achieve their intolerant goals. I will end maybe with some suggestions not to follow. You don't have to follow us to have democratization first and doing something important on the issue of religious freedom. So let me now turn to my first part. When we Indonesians achieve our independence, our country is not only among the largest archipelago in the world, you know what it is, but also the most populous and multi-ethnic, not only that, but multi-religious country in the world. Given this fact and our survival to this day, this is important to mention because some observers in 1998 start talking about one of the article titled, Will Indonesia break up? I think written by Emerson, one of the great observers of Indonesian politics. So nothing is really taken for granted here, and we are lucky because of that. no wonder if we are today proud of our country's motto, which is Unity in Diversity, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. And today, as we regain our democracy in 1998, we Indonesians are also proud to become the fourth largest democracy in the world, which is the largest Muslim democracy in the world. Happily and sadly. As part of the Muslim Ummah in the country, the dominant religious community in Indonesia, I am also so proud of our legacy of tolerant and peaceful Islam. I remember the story of how the late Muhammad Hatta, the name was taken from Fariduddin Abba, the author of, what is it? What's the title of the book?
Conference of the Bird.
Of the Bird. What is the Arab title of it?
Mantik At-Tayr.
Mantik At-Tayr. Mantik At-Tayr. She's so smart. Our first vice president, nationalist, and also devout Muslim. He's a devout one because he was born in Minangkabau. You know that kind of, Minangkabau Muslims are usually very, santri, very taat, right? And whose name, successfully approached Muslim leaders at the critical time of our proclamation of independence to replace the Jakarta Charter. Jakarta Charter is basically the document which suggests that Indonesia should be based on Islamic Sharia. You can see the Hatta's picture on my PowerPoint, on my slide. At that critical moment, Hatta was basically approached by the delegate from Christian communities in eastern part of the country, from Maluku, Ambon, Ende, Timor, who complained, not only complained but also threatened that if Indonesia is based on Islamic Sharia, the Jakarta Charter, they would separate themselves from the newborn country. For this reason, Muhammad Hatta approached some Muslim leaders, among others, the most important ones, I think the head of Nahdlatul Ulama and the head of Muhammadiyah, two largest Muslim organizations in our country, but also in the world actually, to ask their agreement on the replacement of the Jakarta Charter with the Pancasila, which they soon agreed. Recalling that moment in his memoir, Muhammad Hatta said, if a serious problem and a problem that could endanger the national unity can be resolved in a small discussion that took place only 15 minutes, he says, it meant that those leaders at the time really prioritized the national unity and its future fate. Hatta is also known for his call for his fellow Muslims to prioritize the essence of Islam rather than the form of Islam. This is one quote that I like. I like most from Muhammad Hatta. One of the things to be taught to the Islamic communities is that they should apply the science of thought, ilmu garam, politik garam, which is felt but not seen, rather than the science of lipstick, daripada ilmu ginju, daripada politik ginju, which is seen but not felt. The essence is more important than the form. For all those reasons, under authoritarian Suharto led New Order period, Indonesia had been widely known as a large and multi-religious country with a strong tradition of religious tolerance and pluralism. And as our general and president was called, Smiling General, actually is the title of his book by Jurad Roder, by a Western biographer of him. Our Islam was also conveniently called Smiling Islam, General yang tersenyum. But sometimes General tersenyum pun so dangerous, right? Or was he the smiling in Pak Harto? Or is Islam really a tolerant and a smiling Islam? The answer, I think, is not and never easy. My take is nothing to me is essential in Indonesian Islam. Indonesian Islam is always multifocal. In our regime, the democratization provided avenues for this multifocality of Islam to express themselves freely for the first time. Before that, there was no free expression of Islam under Suharto. There are some good things in it, but there are also some bad things. As the above reputation of tolerant Ismaili Islam has changed in the last 20 years ago, following the country's transition toward democracy in 1998. It started with the incidents of collective communal interreligious violence between Muslims and Christians, such as those which took place not only in Ambon but also in North Maluku, not so far from Ambon, but it's a different part of Maluku, and Poso, which is the neighboring island of Ambon in central Sulawesi, which took the lives of more than 3,000 people. Although this communal interreligious between Muslim and Christians violent conflict has declined remarkably about 10 years ago, about 2004, 2007, with or without state intervention. This is important. Some people are just tired of being in conflict, you know. The legacies of this deadly conflict are still strongly with us. Segregation of populations along their religious divisions, for example, in Ambon. If you go to Ambon, you see that you can feel that, you know, tense situations between communities. The remaining suspicions among different religious communities, the loss of jobs, and many more. And remember that Poso, that Poso, in the last 15 years, has been a secure place for the Jemaah Islami, you know, our best organized terrorist group, to collect new recruits and train them, sometimes to become suicide bombers. Besides, reports by human rights groups, including my center, show the rise of another form of interreligious conflict, especially over the place of worship in many parts of the country. This happened not only against the construction of churches in many Muslim populated areas, against churches, but also the other way around, against the construction of masajid, of mosques in mostly Christian populated area. And sadly, snowballing effect playing a role here. People learn bad things from other people with the intention to revenge. When I did my research on policing religious conflict in Indonesia, published in 2015, available in English for you to download, one of my respondents, a Christian in Inde, East Timor, reported saying, "We learn from the television," so television is useful here for bad things, "that you, Muslim, did that against our churches in Jakarta and Bogor. And if you could do that, if you could do that against ours, why you think we couldn't do the same thing against your mosque here in our area?" Another form of Islam ramah expression is in today Indonesia is intolerance, even violent act of discrimination. This is what I want to show you on my slide, against religious minorities groups such as the Ahmadis and the Shia, or against sectarian cult such as Gavatar, or traditional religions, you know, the agama asli, you know, the traditional religions such as Sunda, Wiwitan, and Western Java, Sunda, Wiwitan, but also there are other traditional religion in northern part of Sumatra, for example. This form of violence have their precedences in our history, but this time they are deadlier. They are deadlier, killing 3 Ahmadis in West Java, also killing 1 Shia in Sampang, Madura, and with higher cost, the loss of Indonesia's reputation as a peaceful country in the world. I want to highlight most of this violence act started with hate speech, as Professor Shad mentioned this morning, and the mobilizations of Muslim hatred. The most notorious one of that kind of hate speech was made by Sobri Lubis. At the time, he was the Secretary General of the Islamic Defender Front, who, among others, said, Ahmadiyah itu halal darahnya, holol darahnya. It's not only halal but whole. He was mocking the Ahmadis, and he was also making some jokes about Gus Dur, about our former president who was also the head of the Nahdlatul Ulama. He said that in bahasa Indonesia it's stronger than you can see the video is available still now on YouTube. He said apa itu Presiden buta, he said blind president. Ham is short for hak asasi manusia, human right. Apa itu ham? Tai ham. You know that, yeah? Makan tuh ham. So Ahmadi's darah is halal for you, then kill. He said that precisely. Bunuh Ahmadi. You can see that picture of Sobri Lubis delivering his sermon in, I think it's in, no, I'm certain about this, in the city of West Java around 2008. Again, it is available on YouTube if you want to check that and discuss more what is the limit of freedom of speech and where is it's not only, there's no more freedom of speech, there is already hate crime, I would suggest. And the police didn't do anything useful against the kind of hate speech, irrespective of the fact that they have regulations on hate speech we usually call ujaran kebencian. Below the picture of Sobri Lubis, you can see, sorry for the close-up picture here, the killing of the Ahmadis in Cikesik. Cikesik is a region in Banten, a province actually neighboring Jakarta, so not far from our capital city and the palace. The police again was there, but couldn't do anything necessary to stop the killing. This is the very first time that was the killing against the Ahmadis and the Shia took place in the country. So because of this recurring incidents of violence in the name of Islam, some observers start to ask if Indonesian Islam began joining the caravan. That's the phrase used by, I think, Greg Feely, one Australian observer of Indonesian Islam. What he meant by caravan is international Muslim groups who employ a violent repertoire to achieve their goal, usually, Middle Eastern Muslims kind of expressions, which is violent. One time observers, this time Martin, very close friend of mine actually, started to ask Martin van Brunsum, the Dutch scholar, started to ask if now is a conservative term in Indonesia's Islam. Sorry for a while. Yeah, I think this. No, I see this Islam marah expressions as the challenge of the group I want to call, let me discuss this, if it is really appropriate, Islamists pose to our young regained democracy. By Islamists, I mean Muslim individual or groups who see that there is a guiding political doctrine in Islam that justifies and motivates collective actions on behalf of that doctrine. These Islamists believe that Islam is a comprehensive religion, a complete system of belief that regulates not only matters of worship, ibadah, but also social relations, muamalah. In contrast to these Muslims, Islamists, there are nominal Muslims, and they are happy to be called nominal abangan, which is fine, they say. Well, in other time they were called liberal, progressive, reformist Islam, like the group I'm part of it. Some people say, who see that being a Muslim is a personal matter with no necessary implications on societal or state level. In Indonesia's context, before these, the American anthropologist or his protege or his Bob Hefner found some national Muslims among political leaders such as Sukarno and Suharto, who they called Abangan Muslim. Abangan means, it's a Japanese word, actually means merah. Merah in contrast to the hijau Muslim. Hijau is usually, the pious Muslim. But when I use the generic term Muslims, I mean to refer both to these Muslim believers. The distinctions I made between Islamists and nominal Muslim is not based on their religiosity or piety, because I think Islam also suggests that it's depend of it's depend on Allah and only depend on Him to judge who is someone who is really pious, righteous, or it's not you to judge. But on their stand on the issue of the relation between Islam as religion and Indonesia as a state, I distance myself from using words such as moderate and radical because they don't tell us much about one's action. While democracy, in which we are living now in Indonesia, including democracy's imperative to uphold the principles of the rule of law, should concern more with actions rather than with the behavior or with thinking. Now, when we talk about Islam and democracy in Indonesia, it is imperative to disaggregate further those Islamists who are non-violent and also violent against actions. The latter is the primary, subject of my talk today. Also, they share the belief that Islam demands Muslims to be socially and politically active. Islamist Muslims part a company, at least in principles, on the issue of how would they perform these religious obligations. I use the term non-violent Islamists to refer to those individuals and groups who condemn the use of violence to Islamize society and politics. This non-violent Islamists refer to, they seek to achieve the goals by working through formal institutions like elections, civic associations, or non-violent organizations. In contrast, violent Islamists are those who reject accommodation with the state regime, refuse to participate in its institutions, and insist on the necessity of the use of violence means to Islamize society and Indonesian politics. If you look at my slide, you can see the self-proclaimed jihadists, such as Bahrum Naim, who we who we in Indonesia prefer to call them terrorists, is a violent Islam par excellence. As I said before, they were alive still and posed a serious challenge to our democracy. The picture shows one of them actually calling for more Indonesians and Malays actually to join what is the ISIS stands for? Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. And they sadly successfully recruit and approach the lady, her name is Novida, to become the first female suicide bomber in Southeast Asia, if the police didn't know her whereabouts in prison now. So she is in the Buddhist prison now. That's sad story about smiling Islam. But on the other end of the spectrum, those Islamists who are working through peaceful democratic institutions, such as general elections, they are mostly losers actually. If you look at the graphs on my PowerPoint, the graph tells you the performance of Islamist parties in Indonesia, comparing the result of all of our elections during reformasi period, because before that there was no free, fair general elections. The graph tells you two things at least. One, the biggest four of our Islamist parties, the biggest four, only collected no more than between 24% and 30% of the total voters in 4 last elections. This strongly suggests that the major division within Indonesian politics, the major division in Indonesian politics, is not religion. It is not between Muslims and non-Muslim, but the multifocality of Islam, which is between Muslims, one Muslim group, one Muslim political, and others. And secondly, the Islamist party with pluralist platform, there are two parties with some observers agree that they have more pluralist platform than the other, are PKB, the party that founded by our late President Gus Dur, Abdurrahman Wahid, also the head of NU, and PEN, National Mandate Party, also established by the former head of the Muhammadiyah, which is Amin Rais, and generally and consecutively perform better than those with conservative platform, which is PPP, Partai Pembangunan, what is PPP? Partai Persatuan Pembangunan, Party for the Unity and Development. And the other one is PKS, of course, yeah, you know that PKS, Partai for the Justice and Prosperous Party. Now, the examples above suggest where our ideals, smiling Islam, clearly losing in certain areas, but also winning in some areas in the last years in Indonesia. The more challenging battle, I think, that involves higher risk for the future is taking place in what I will call democracy's gray areas. These are areas where legal democratic institutions or regulations are manipulated by politicians who are not necessarily sincere Muslims to sell the Islamic card to strengthen their Islamic credential among Muslim voters. Nothing is really strange about that, because you are also going to have another elections coming soon here. One such democratic institutions is what we call regional regulations that came out after the decentralization law in 2002 to collect the vote from their respective areas. So many secular politicians, including those who are running Gold Card, the notorious party from the old time, issued the Sharia-based regional regulations, we call Perda, Peraturan Daerah, Sharia-based, or some people also call it Sharia-inspired regional regulations that could jeopardize our culture of tolerance and pluralism. In West Sumatra, for example, a Perda Sharia regulates that all female students should wear hijab. Nothing. I have no specific, idea about whether hijab is, compulsory or not. That's your choice. But to make it compulsory, that's what I'm against. Irrespective of what their religions are. So Christians in West Sumatra use the hijab when they are going to school. Another democratic repertoire that is severely manipulated by politicians is the freedom to protest, freedom of expressions. In the last couple of months, series of protests were staged in Jakarta, led by the notorious Front Pembela Islam. What is the name of this? Islamic Defender Front. It's very close to your organization, actually. But you are not and supported by Knowledge and Tommy Suharto. So Tommy Suharto and the whole family of the Suharto came into the protest. They fund the money, they channel the money to them, they pay them, and they are also among those people who are on the street during that series of demonstrations. Main actions to defend Islam, the massive protests were staged 3 times, all against the then acting governor, our Ahok, as I mentioned in the beginning. Because of the size of the protest, the police finally followed the protesters' demand to bring out into the court. Our best and largest circulated weekly magazine, Tempo, rightly called the case mobocracy. A situation where the law is determined by the size of the crowd involving in the protest. And sadly, we have blasphemy law. And with this law that was at the end selected by the judge to imprison the above mentioned Ahok for 2 years. So he was not only lost the election but also jailed for the crime I certain he never committed. We Indonesians usually call the blasphemy law a rubber clause. I don't know whether this this metaphor also play in Malaysia. Rubber clause means pasar karet. We usually call pasar karet. It was so flexible, so that you can make almost anything out of that. Rubber is like rubber, you can take this into any area that you want. But a new book by Syrian Joy explains the situation better, and in a way that is more precise, I think. He called all this act of manipulations hate spin. That is, the giving or taking of offense as a political strategy. The strategy is more, the political strategy is an essential element of it. In other words, it is manufactured religious offense. You can see the cover of the book on my slide. Me and my center invited Chadian to come. I think only a week after the defeat of Ahok, and I wrote a review of the book published only last week in Tempo magazine, the largest circulating magazine. Now I know, so people start to call me, Ahokers. I think I should stop here. In short, these all represent the dual challenges that the process of democratization has brought into the arena. The battle between tolerance and intolerant Islam. On the one hand, our democratization provides peaceful channels for voicing preferences and settling religious-based disputes. But on the other hand, it often involves sweeping political changes that can increase religious groups' incentive to discriminate against the others, even to use violence against them and cause some killing. In other words, Indonesia's nations, the re-democratization provides venues for both for freedom and extremism. Maybe I should end with some suggestions. First, 3 suggestions I make. Don't ever wait for democracy to come to your town before doing anything meaningful to strengthen your pluralism. That's a good case from Indonesia. That's a good lesson from Indonesia. Doesn't mean that democracy is bad in itself, but there are mechanisms within democracy that could be used to strengthen hatred, Muslim hatred in the name of religion. Democracy is not panacea. Democratic problems need to be solved also in the way that is democratic, and that is not easy because some politicians are using that very smartly, and it should be solved in the way that is democratic. You can't just kill them, like the one that maybe Faruqi did before. Secondly, Marrakesh call is powerful and timely, but in order to make it more meaningful, it needs not only lessons, I think. I'm sorry, I went to theology school, but my last studies is more political science, political sociology. But I think it's also needs not only lesson in theology and Islamic history, but also individual citizens' participations in fostering political inclusions. I didn't say it should be democratic, but your participation even, the basic one. We should start with ourselves, with anything we individually have. If that benefit to mention get a Arabic term, and potensially be a change you wanted to see happen in your world. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.